Thanks for joining us today. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Geun. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. Korea's economy remains on track for projected growth in the third quarter on the back of a booming property market and construction investment, but concerns abound. Global agencies have been rating Korea at the top tier when it comes to the country's sovereign credit rating, but its real economy hasn't improved much. We find out why with an expert. The Korean economy has extended its sluggish 0% range growth into a fourth consecutive quarter. Now, worries about low growth are on the rise, and experts see a lot of challenging variables ahead. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
Korea's economic growth has remained in the 0% range for 4 straight quarters, fueling concerns that the country may be headed for a prolonged cycle of low growth. The Bank of Korea estimates the country's GDP rose 0.7% in the July to September period from the quarter before. Although modest, it has slowed from the 0.8% recorded in the second quarter.
Third quarter growth was mainly led by construction investment, domestic consumption, and government spending. Domestic consumption contributed 1.3 percentage points to GDP growth, while government spending contributed 0.2 percentage points.
Breaking it down by category, construction investment rose almost 4%, picking up from 3.1% in the second quarter. Government spending rose 1.4% from 0.1%, thanks in part to the implementation of the government's budget supplement. Private spending slowed, dipping below 1% due to the end of a tax cut program for consumption. Facilities investment fell 0.1% from 2.8% growth in the second quarter. Further stoking concerns are lingering uncertainties which are expected to take a toll on already feeble growth figures down the line.
Fourth quarter growth is expected to dip further due to an anti-graft law that took effect, as well as a prolonged strike in the auto industry and the recall crisis of the Galaxy Note 7, which will hurt the manufacturing sector. The negative impact may carry over to the first quarter of next year.
On top of that, experts don't see much room for more expansionary measures as they may hurt the country's fiscal soundness, and the BOK will likely put monetary easing on hold as it waits to assess the impact of a looming U.S. rate hike. With that, many foresee a tough road ahead in reaching the government's growth target of 2.8% this year, and instead see the economy expanding in the mid-2% range. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
The head of the OECD has said that his organization will change its 2017 growth forecast for the Korean economy. In an interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency, Secretary General Angel Gurria said the OECD plans to revise its most recent outlook of 3% growth, saying the new projection will depend heavily on the outlook for world trade. He added that global trade was weak in the first half, and this could adversely affect Korea's economy. The revision will be reflected in the OECD Economic Outlook report, scheduled to be released next month. Korea's growth rate has been rooted in the 2% range since 2011, faced with weak exports, rising household debt, and other economic uncertainties. A new state budget management bill to keep the ratio of government debt to GDP at 45% or less is one step closer to becoming the law. The Finance Ministry says the bill was approved at a cabinet meeting attended by Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn on Tuesday and will now be passed on to the National Assembly. The bill also stipulates that the ratio of deficit to GDP should remain below 3%. The ministry said the controls are necessary to maintain the nation's fiscal health. Korea's debt to GDP ratio for this year is at around 40%, up almost 9 percentage points in just 5 years, as the government tries to tackle a sluggish economy with more fiscal stimulus. Lotte Group Chairman Shin Dong-bin has apologized for the ongoing family feud and legal investigation that has cast a dark cloud over the company. It comes a week after Shin and several of his family members were indicted by Seoul prosecutors for financial irregularities. Our Kwon Jang-ho has this report.
Appearing alongside 23 CEOs of Lotte Group affiliates, Shin Dong-bin gave a long bow and apologized to the Korean public.
I apologize for the worries that have been caused by the recent prosecutorial investigation amid the ongoing power struggle at the company over the last year. I feel we have not met the standards expected by the people and society.
With the apology, Shin announced a series of reforms to the group's corporate structure. He pledged to invest some $35 billion over the next 5 years in the restructuring effort and hire 70,000 new staff. He also announced plans to establish a compliance committee, which will bring in outside experts to help the group be more socially responsible. Shin also said the company will push for Hotel Lotte to be listed as soon as possible. This statement comes after a similar apology and reform announcements were made just 14 months ago when the power struggle with Shin's brother Dongju for the country's 5th largest conglomerate was aired in public, and things have only escalated since. Last week, after a 4-month investigation by Seoul prosecutors, Shin and several of his family members, along with 14 sitting and former Lotte executives, were charged with embezzlement and tax evasion. Those indicted include Shin's estranged brother Dongju and his father and company founder Shin Gyuk-ho. Prosecutors said investigations found evidence of financial irregularities amounting to $330 million. Seoul courts rejected requests to detain Shin and the others involved in the case, so until the trial starts, all eyes will be on whether Lotte will be able to recover. Kwon Jang-ho, Business Daily.
Cars from Korea's Hyundai Motor and its sister company Kia Motors have both made it onto the list of the top 10 most reliable cars, published by the U.S. Consumer Report for the 2nd year in a row. Kia's Optima ranked 5th, and Hyundai's Azero was named the 7th safest car to drive on the group's annual auto reliability survey out of a total of 29 brands. The survey was based on data from 500,000 subscribers and roughly 300 models spanning the years of 2000 to 2016. The results are the best ever for Kia Motors to date on this particular survey. The leading 2 spots went to Lexus and Toyota for the 4th straight year. Samsung Electronics is offering Galaxy Note 7 owners here in Korea the chance to upgrade their device to a Note 8 for half the price when the company launches its next generation of the phabless series next year. Our Oh Jung-hee tells us more about Samsung's exchange plans for the ill-fated Note 7.
Samsung has announced additional compensation for Galaxy Note 7 owners in Korea. For those who choose to exchange their Note for a Galaxy S7 or S7 Edge, Samsung will offer a 50% discount next year if they want to upgrade to an S8 or Note 8. Korean smartphone users usually pay monthly installments for 24 months when they buy a new device, but these customers will be exempt from installments for 12 months if they decide to take one of the flagship models. So consumers getting Galaxy S8 next March will have to pay installments for just 6 more months at that point, and those getting a Note 8 next August won't have to pay any additional installments. The new plan also applies to those who've already exchanged their phones for a Galaxy S7 or S7 Edge. That exchange option is available until the end of next month, meaning consumers will soon have to decide whether or not to jump to those models. Samsung added that when it comes to repairing devices, Note 7 owners will get priority along with a 50% discount. The previous set of measures remain in place. That is, Note 7 owners can get a full refund or exchange their device to other Samsung models such as Galaxy S7, S7 Edge, or the Note 5. People who choose a Samsung device will be provided with gift cards worth around $25 and a voucher for $60 toward their phone bill. A move to hold on to its loyal consumers, Samsung is expected to announce similar measures overseas as well. Oh Jung-hee, Business Daily.
Where does Korea stand when it comes to sovereign credit rating? A country's credit rating, simply put, is a grading on the nation's ability to meet its financial obligations, giving investors a look into credit risks and factors that influence them. Now, with that said, Korea's credit rating stands quite high above others, with all three global rating agencies having placed Korea above other countries like China and Japan, citing steady economic performance and fiscal soundness. Now, there's no doubt that this is good news for the Korean economy, as it indicates an elevated global assessment of the country's economic status and performance. But when it comes to the outlook for Korea's real economy, things are not so rosy. We'll take a look at where these mixed readings are coming from.
Fitch Ratings kept Korea's credit rating at AA- for the fourth consecutive year, citing factors like the country's strong macroeconomic performance, despite geopolitical risks stemming from North Korea. Moody's rating for Korea stands at AA2, equivalent to Standard & Poor's AA, the agency's third highest rating. Such robust ratings for Korea may help bolster investor confidence, especially at a time when the global economy is seeing sluggish growth. But despite positive assessment from these rating agencies, Korea continues to battle paltry domestic consumption, falling exports, and high youth unemployment. With a gap between different economic readings showing increasingly mixed signs, how can Korea ensure real economic benefits are passed on to the public?
And for more on this, Professor Yang Jun-suk from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Happy to be here.
All right, so how does Korea's credit rating compare to that of other countries?
Well, depending on the credit rating agency, we're at third or fourth highest level. So as mentioned before, that's higher than Japan or China, and it's about the same level as France and UK. So we're at a very high level right now.
So like you said, having a higher rating compared to China and Japan must mean good things for the Korean economy, right?
Well, in a limited way. Korea can really only take advantage of this rating if Korea's government decides to issue more bonds and borrow more money, because we'll be paying lower interest rate because of the lower risk premium. And it might indirectly help foreign investment into Korean companies, but it doesn't really directly perhaps affect economic growth.
Now, but despite all this, things are looking quite different when it comes to other economic indicators. Just today, in today's third quarter preliminary growth numbers, the Bank of Korea said the country's real GDP grew 0.7% on quarter. Now, it's better than forecast, but it's still relatively slow.
Right. The numbers, well, there was a very good growth in construction, surprisingly, 3.9%. But the numbers that worry me a bit is the non-construction investment fell by 0.1%. Consumption went up only by 0.5%. And I think those are the crucial numbers if our economy is going to reinvigorate itself. So it's better than expected numbers, so that's good news, obviously. But I think it does signal that there will be a continuing slowdown.
Now, what problems could also stem from the growing gap then between the country's credit rating numbers and the real economy?
Okay, well, you have to remember that the sovereign credit ratings that these agencies give basically measure the government's ability to pay back the debt and pay the interest on their debt. So as far as the economic growth is concerned, obviously, if you have more growth, then government has more capacity to take taxes, reduce government expenditure, so it has more room to pay back the debt. But that's the primary concern of these ratings. So that doesn't necessarily mean that people will have better lives. It just means that the government will be able to pay back the debt. And so that's why there's sometimes a difference between what the ratings agencies say and how people feel on the ground.
Now, going back in history a little bit, back during the 1997 Asian financial crisis and also 2008 global financial crisis, countries' credit ratings around the world nosedived. Can you tell us more about this?
Okay, well, in case of Korea, in 1997, before the financial crisis, actually the Korean credit rating was only one step below where we are right now.
Oh, okay.
And then within 18 months, it dropped to triple B minus. That's
triple B minus.
Barely above of the junk bond rating. So things can change very quickly. Now, people think that credit rating agencies have some kind of magic formula or they have secret information sources, but over and over again, we see that they miss the same stuff as everybody else. As I just mentioned, the case of Korea in 1997, but they also missed the global financial crisis, the subprime mortgage problem, and the the problem in Greece.
Right.
So they have perhaps more information than everybody else, but they don't have any secret sources of information. So apparently they make mistakes like all of us.
Now, so what can be done then to ensure that what we see on the credit ratings front get translated into actual benefits for Korean citizens?
Okay, well, I think we tend to just obsess a bit more on the credit ratings agencies than we should, sovereign credit rating. Because they measure the capacity of government to pay back the debt, it seems very important that Korea maintain a very low government budget deficit and debt to GDP ratio. Now, compared to other OECD countries, and this is part of the reason why we got such a good ratings, compared to other OECD countries, we're not doing very badly on those statistics. We have 40% debt to GDP ratio, which is very low by OECD standards, and we have roughly government budget balance by the OECD standards. Again, most of the OECD countries are in the deficit. So that's partially why Korea got such a good credit rating. But I think harping on that actually keeps the government from doing expansionary fiscal policy because they're afraid that it will drive up the deficit, drive up the debt. And I think the situation in the macroeconomic Korea right now forces us to have an expansionary fiscal policy. But I think a lot of people in the government, as well as some people in research area, think that the government cannot afford it because we'll have worse credit ratings in the future. And I think this is sort of keeping us back. So I think we should be more adventurous.
All right, let's hope to see more of that on that front. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.